The story you asked me about occurred just about 100 years ago, okay? It was 1914, all right? My father was born in '09. He had his name was Eddie. He had an older brother named Albert. There were his parents and two younger brothers, August and Adolf. My grandparents, being of German extraction, decided to go to Germany to visit relatives. And they took the two younger boys with them because they weren't in school. They were little. And my father and his older brother, Albert, they left with my grandmother's mother, who was my great-grandmother. So off they went. But what happened was, when they got there, at that time, was the start of the First World War. Now, the First World War started in 1914 and started with the assassination of the Duke of Austria. And at that time, Germany had a king he was referred to as the Kaiser, Kaiser Wilhelm. There were a number of countries involved. It was somewhat complicated how this war started. It wasn't as clear-cut as the Second World War was. In any case, the Germans and the Russians were on opposite sides. And somehow or other, my grandparents and the children fell into the hands of the Russians. And they were civilians, but the Russians wouldn't let them go because they were afraid, with a name like Schultz, that they were going to go to Germany and fight against them. And so they didn't want to give any manpower to Germany. So they spent, as near as I can recall, a lot of time on trains. And they shuttled them around to different places. Sometimes the trains were moving, sometimes not. At one point, my grandmother took the two younger boys with her to visit a lady in another car on the train. And while she was there, they uncoupled the train, and the part with my grandfather in left. And my grandmother tried to go back, and no grandpa! So eventually they did get together again, because these trains, as near as I could tell, shuttled. But while they were gone, my father's older brother, Albert, ran away. And they never found him. My father tells the story of one day he was walking down a street in our hometown, and he passed another fella who looked familiar. He said hi, and the other guy said hi, and they walked past one another. And then when my father got home, he said, "Oh my goodness, that was my brother." And when my grandparents came back, they hired a detective. There was no internet. There was no communication like we have now. It just didn't exist. They're still using horses. So that was it. They never found Albert, ever. Never, ever found him. So it was a time of loss in many different ways. But I can remember hearing her tell this story to me when I was little. Now I'm older than she was when she told me the story.